Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start our Saturday class with the prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo, Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhur Bhavaswaha, Tatsavitra Varenayam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Diyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. अस्तो मा सद्गम्य तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गम्य मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गम्य ओम सहना भवतु सहना भुनक्तु सवीर्यं कर्वावै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावै ओम शांति शांति शांति. So let's open our Yog Darshan books. Commonly, people call it YogSutras or Patanjali's Sutras also. So we are on the second chapter, Sadhana Path, and verse number 42. So this is the verse where Rishi Patanjali is talking about the outcome of having a content personality. Content, santosh. So santoshad anuttama sukh labha. A very small verse, but the depth is like an ocean's depth in this verse, if you try to understand it fully. Santoshad, contentment. Anuttamaha, unsurpassed. See, there's a uttama, then there's a anuttama. There's a unsurpassed. Sukh is happiness, labh is attainment. So from contentment comes happiness without any equal. So that means there's no other happiness compared to the contentment, santosh. So santosh leads to happiness without any equal. Normally we run after the sensuous pleasures in the world, or we think that there is a great happiness in heaven. But our rishis, they tell us heavenly happiness or the sensuous happiness, even if we combine them, it does not equal even one little particle. And to emphasize it, they say it 1/16 of the joy that arises from the elimination of craving. And that's what santosh is. So practicing contentment means eliminating all cravings, all trishnas. Craving is a nature of our mind. And it's a mature state of desire. So that means when the desire matures, it becomes craving. And there are as many desires as grains of sand on the earth, plus the stars in the sky. So these infinite desires are always accompanied by entourage of fear, doubt, worry, and anxiety. So when we transcend desires altogether, we feel this contentment, but it is extremely difficult. Because as long as we are ignorant of our true identity, and as long as our desires and actions are propelled by deep-rooted mental impressions and tendencies, we are impelled to keep chasing our desires. So that means without knowledge, without vidya, without knowing who we are, we really cannot get rid of these desires. But Rishi Patanjali is telling us there is a way out. Contentment. So the practice of contentment begins with a conscious decision not to fixate on the fruit of our actions first. It starts from there. Doing the duty, not fixing your mind on the fruits. And if you want to raise yourself a little higher, offer the fruits to God. You're doing it for God's pleasure. But it definitely requires a deep conviction that when we perform our actions, there are forces which are governing the law of action and effect, which will bear the fruit. So fruit does come, but we got to remind ourselves that we are not doing the actions for the fruits. We can take the remnant of the fruit as a prasad, but majority of the fruit is for God. That's where the contentment comes. Because otherwise, when our actions bear desirable fruit, we get attached to those fruits if we think that they are ours. And when fruit is undesirable, we become remorse, sad. We even go into depression. But contentment, the virtue of contentment keeps us unperturbed by both desirable and undesirable consequences of our actions. In other words, the practice of contentment means recognizing that there is a higher reality and having faith in that reality. And that's how you allow yourself to get over those long cherished tendencies which run the course to perform our actions. We just move towards the divine slowly. And the more we are established in this practice, the freer we are from the entourage accompanying our desires, which I mentioned earlier, the fear, doubt, worry, anxiety. So a person who's a santoshi does not suffer from any of these. Just remember that anytime there's a fear or a doubt or a worry, anxiety, those kind of tendencies in our mind, remember there is a lack of santosh. Cultivate more and more santosh. So the freer we are from these negative tendencies, the happier we will be. Because all these negative tendencies, they take our happiness away from us. And Rishi Patanjali says that a content person, a santoshi, has that happiness which doesn't have any limits. So limitless happiness. Limitless. So it's a beautiful verse, a short verse, and I'm sure we all can try to memorize it. Santoshat anuttamaha sukhlava. Sukhlava. We all want to be sukhi. All our actions are propelled towards the sukh. We want sukh, but we stay dukhi because we don't understand where the sukh is coming from. Sukh is from santosh, not from the cravings. So now the next niyam in the next verse is tapa. This chapter started with the tap also. You remember the Kriya Yoga? Tap, Swadhyaya, Ishwar, Pranidhan. That is a Kriya Yoga according to Rishi Patanjali. Tap. So let's talk about this tap again. Kaya indriyaha siddhi ashuddhi kashyat tapsaha. Kaya is the body. Indriya means senses. Siddhi means yogic accomplishment. Ashuddhi, impurity. Kashyat, destruction. Tapsaha, austerity. Austerity destroys impurities. Okay? Because tap has that heat in it, and heat destroys the toxins. So austerity destroys impurities. From that comes yogic accomplishments pertaining to the body and senses. So this is the outcome when we are firmly established in tapa. So sure, we loosely translate tapa as austerity. And in every religion, they talk about austerity. Beginning of the religious history, there is a mention of tapa. Every culture, people are committed to austerity. Some people won't eat meat on Fridays. Some Hindus will not eat it on Tuesdays and the Thursdays or some other days. They will not do certain things on certain days. Tapa, tapa. So sometimes this austerity has been associated with mortifying the flesh for the purpose of subduing or deadening the appetites of body and senses. That's why there's a prolonged fasting, sleep deprivation, exposure to extreme temperatures also, or there are other forms of self-inflicted pains in the name of tapa. But in the yogic tradition, practices of this type have nothing to do with austerity. In fact, they are forbidden. It's called a tamsik tapa. We saw that in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17. You can revisit verses 5 and 6. He says, sure, these are the words of Lord Krishna, but written by Ved Vyasji. Ashastra vihitam ghoram tapyante ye tapojana. Damb ahankar sanyuktaha kam rag balanvataha. Karshyantaha shrirastham bhut gramam achetasaha. Mam cha ev antaha sharirastha tan vidhe asur nishchyan. So he says these kind of austerities are asuri. Ignorant person of the demonic nature will practice these severe austerities because they are not following the prescriptions given in the scriptures. These are full of hypocrisy, egoism, and they are impelled by the force of desire and attachment. And you are senselessly, he says, torturing the elements in your body. And God says, even me, because I reside in your body. So that's why in yogic tradition, these kind of extreme austerities are definitely no. So what is a tap then? Practices can be accepted as austerity only when they comply with the fundamental principles of yoga. The technical term for this is yatha yogam. Yatha yogam. Any action which will take us towards the union with God. Because yoga means union. So the yogic concept of union applies to every aspect of our being. We got to make sure that when we are doing the bodily austerity, are we doing it as a yogic practice or not? Is it helping us to keep this body healthy, or are we torturing our body? Because we got to reach all the way to the union between Ishwar and us. That is our goal. Any practice that accelerates the achievement of this union is yoga. That is Yatha Yoga. So now going back to the literal meaning of tapa, that means shining. Shining with heat, or radiance of the life force which we can see through those practices. Is my practice making me radiant at a physical level? And radiance in a physical level means a healthy body. Radiance at the mental level means there's no restlessness in my mind. There's a calmness in my mind. And radiance at the intellectual level means clarity. Is there a clarity in my intelligence so that I can make decision correctly or not? That's a radiance. So tap really means that there should be a radiance. There should be a vibrant personality of a yogi. That's why they say if nobody else can do something, a yogi definitely can. Because there's a vibrant and radiant personality of a yogi. So from the standpoint of practice, gathering and imbibing this radiant force is called tapa. So we got to see whatever level of tapa we are doing. Could be getting up early in the morning. When we go on our yoga mat, that is a tapa. When we are not eating certain things, that's a tapa. We are not eating at certain time, after certain time. That is a tapa. Even if our mind doesn't want to go for the weekly satsang, but we still go there. That's a tapa. So tapa involves in every aspect of our life. Somebody is getting angry at us, and we don't get angry. We don't say the words back, and we don't even feel the anger back. In our mind, that is tapa. So as we saw in Sutra number 18 of this chapter, each of us has the capacity to shine. And also to make the world around us shine too. Because this shine and the radiance, you just don't keep it with yourself. When sun is shining, what is the sun doing? Giving the radiance and the light to us. So the same thing we do. We have the capacity. Are we doing it or not? With the tapa, we should be able to. If our body is healthy, only then we can help somebody. If our mind is calm, only then we can bring the calmness in somebody else. So remember, tapa is to bring this vibrancy and the radiance in our entire personality. Entire personality. Most of this capacity, which all of us have, has become dormant. So shaking off this dormancy and reclaiming our inherent effulgence is tapa. Okay, not being lazy. Initially, you have to push yourself, then it becomes a nature. So it has nothing in common with the religious concept of austerity. Remember that. This is a yogic austerity. In that chapter 17 of Bhagavad Gita, tap is divided at three broad categories. Shariram, that's a physical austerity. Vacham, the austerity of the speech. And manasam, the mental austerity. So observing the principle of purity, practicing humility, observing the principles of brahmacharya and non-violence, and committing ourselves to practices that help us reconnect with the pure and transforming powers of intuition is physical austerity. Okay? So austerity, we got to do it through this body. This body is a tool given to us. Then austerity of the speech, speaking only words which are not irritating. Words which are true. Because sometimes it could be true, but it's irritating. Which are good, which are useful to others. And finally, that serve as a means of studying and examining our internal states. That is a tap of the speech. Then manasik austerity. How do we measure that? It's measured by the clarity and joyfulness of our mind. Man is a devata. Is it joyful? Or is it depressed? Or is it sad? This devata of ours, if it's joyful, it can take us to the upper realms. Cultivating thoughts that contribute to the serenity of our mind and fill our heart with kindness will fulfill the criteria for mental austerity. And how it's implemented, that also Rishi Vyas told us in Bhagavad Gita. Observing silence. Observing our thought processes during silence. Because otherwise we are so busy making noise outside. We don't even know what's happening in our mind. Observe. So these three categories of tap, sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic, the highest quality can be accomplished by faith, though. Faith. And this faith is infused with the highest degree of purity. And the practitioner knows what is a faith and what is just a blind faith. We know that. So sattvic practice of tap is not tainted by the desire for the fruit of the practice. Remember that. When we practice tap with the intention of gaining distinction, attraction, attention, it is rajasic. It feeds the ego. And it's always short-lived. Today, people who are praising you, tomorrow, they may not. Or they may insult you too. So the lowest grade tap is austerity carried out by a dull, dense, and a stupefied mind. It causes pain and is undertaken out of foolish notions and in defiance of common sense. So we don't want to be, that's not a yogic tapa. So this sutra is telling us that a high quality practice of tapa, see, that's the reason I went through the tamasic, rajasic, sattvic and different levels. So high quality of tapa at all level of our personality will lead to kaya siddhi and indriya siddhi. Kaya siddhi means bodily accomplishment. So according to Sutra, we'll see that in the third chapter also. Kaya Siddhi means there's a beauty, there's a charm, there's a vitality, there's a self-healing power. That is a Kaya Siddhi, bodily wealth. And all of us are born with these four forms of wealth. We all have this inside us. But do we know how to tap into it? Through the yogic tapa? This is what Rishi Patanjali keep on telling us. When both gross and subtle toxin and impurities are removed, our body begins to reveal its inherent beauty, its charm, vitality, and healing powers. When we don't uselessly speak, we have time to think about it. Whatever I'm saying, is it true or not? Is it beneficial or not? Do I really need to say that or not? That is outcome of the tapa. As our practice matures, we become fully established in tapa, a much higher level of bodily wealth comes also. People call them miracles, just like we were reading yesterday in that yogi's autobiography. Those are yogic powers. These devatas, they are waiting to give these powers to us. Because these devatas are not just outside, they are inside us too. But we have to do tapa for it. And we don't do the yogic tapa for the attainment of these powers, though. They are ready to give it to you, but you don't do the tapa for that. A yogi does the tapa because it's a duty. Okay? To become one with that highest. We want to become pure. Purity is the reason we do the tapa. Because only a pure can merge with the pure. Impure cannot merge with the perfect pure. So God is all pure, so we got to reach to that level by letting go of the impurity. And that is our goal. And when he says that practice of tapa leads to the indriya siddhi, perfection of the senses, that means our capacity to know the objective world through the senses. Hearing becomes better, touching, seeing, tasting, smelling. This is an enormous wealth which we have. We are always attracted to the other wealth, but this is the real wealth. Ask a person who cannot see how much that person will pay to be able to see. We all know the damaging effect of impurities on our inner intelligence also. Inner intelligence. So that's why this purity and more purity. And this inner intelligence is called intuition. Inner, higher intelligence. So remember, the impurities fall into two categories, physical and mental. So physical impurities are either toxins created by malfunctioning organs and systems or toxins the body soaks up from outside. Those are the toxins. Mental impurities are the karmic impurities. And Rishi Patanjali calls them kalesha, affliction. And we have seen the elaboration on that earlier. So tap is to create purity on these levels. So that's why even if you are fasting on certain days, just not just a fasting from the food, we got to see that what else is going inside, which is creating more and more toxins in my, not just the body alone, but the mind also. Put a stop to it. It could be through TV. It could be through people. Useless talking, gossiping. It could be reading, which is useless. Could be staying on the phone too much. You got to just put a stop to that also, because ultimately we are trying to clean ourselves. That is the outcome of tapasya. See, yogis, when they went into the caves or on the mountains, away from the society, why did they go there? To do the tapasya, tap. Whatever they could find over there, whether they were fruits or the leaves or the berries or the roots, just a little. They didn't need too much. They just consumed that or lived off the air itself, the pran from the air or the radiance from the sun. And that was enough for them, because they knew the purpose of moving away from the society and going at those places was to get rid of the toxins from the body also, mind also, and intellect also. So bringing that shine. Yogis view tap as a kaya kalpa also. That is a technical term, which means reclaiming the body as it was. It's a renewal of the body, kaya kalpa. We'll read about that also in that autobiography of that yogi. And other yogis also, they have gone through it, kaya kalpa. But today we are not going to go into it. But remember, if you're doing any kind of a tap, sure, our goal is not a kaya kalpa, but we want to get rid of the toxins from this body, from this mind, and from this intellect of ours, which cannot make decision properly. Okay, so kaya siddhi or kaya kalpa, we'll talk about it later on, or kaya sampad, that's another technical term. So today we are not going to talk about that. So now let's look at the next verse, which talks about swadhyaya. See, so shauch, santosh, tap, swadhyaya, ishwar pranidhan. These are the 5 niyams. So the last 3 niyams, Rishi Patanjali called those group of 3 as a kriya yoga. Tap, swadhyaya, ishwar pranidhan. Okay, but there are 5 niyams. So swadhyayat ishta devata samparyogaha. Swadhyayat means self-study. Isht means it's like a capable of guiding and enlightening. That's Isht. Devata means the bright being. So that bright being which is guiding you, which you have chosen, which is desirable to you. Samparyoga, union or interaction with. So from self-study comes the opportunity to be in the company of your Ishta Devta. So that means of that bright being of our choice. That's why for every practitioner, there has to be just one Ishta Devta. Not two, not three, not four, not five, and not just many, many. Just one Ishta Devta. Because you want to have a company of that. You want to have a communion with that. You got to establish that relationship with that Ishta Devta. So this is a clear evidence that these three niyams play a key role in enabling us to succeed in our practice. Tap, Swadhyaya, Ishvara, Pranidhan. So this sutra reads that self-study gives us the opportunity to be in the company of Ishta Devata, of our choice. And these Ishta Devatas, which are called bright beings also, are the rishis and the siddhs, or even the avatars. They will visit those who are committed to Swadhyaya. They are committed. Because they see that this being, see, just like in this culture also, they say there are angels who are helping us. So this is like an angel, our personal angel, who is always with us. We saw in the first chapter from verses 24 to 29, he gave us a concept of Ishwar. So according to Rishi Patanjali, Ishwar is radically different from the idea of God conceived by various other religions. Ishwar. Ishwar is not an individuated entity. Ishwar is all-pervading, omniscient being. He told us that it is beyond time, space, and the law of cause and effect. That is Ishwar. Ishwar is an absolute reality. It is beyond cognition. The mind, senses cannot comprehend it. This reality does not visit anyone. Why? Because it permeates all times, places, and entities. We may or may not see it, but Ishwar is always seeing us. So Rishi Patanjali is not using the Ishwar term in this sutra. Instead, he is using the Ishta Devta. And you can always translate Ishta Devta as a deity of our preference. So the most precise translation of this sutra is self-study results in having darshan of the deity of our preference. If your Ishta Devta is Lord Ram, he will come visit you. Or if it's some other form of God, you will have a visit. Sometimes that visit can be when you are studying. Sometimes that visit could be in your sleep. Sometimes in meditation. Sometimes even when you're walking. Because ultimately, this dhyana avastha should not be just only sitting down. We can do the chores in the house, but our mind is absorbed in the Ishta Devta. You can be taking care of a little baby or a sick person, elderly person, but you are thinking about God. Ishta Devata can be there. You're driving the car and your Ishta Devata can be sitting in the passenger seat next to you. There's no written law that only when you're meditating, only then Ishta Devata will accompany you. So self-study results in having darshan of the deity of our preference. Darshan really means seeing and comprehending also. That's a darshan too. So self-study gives us the capacity to see and comprehend the deity of our choice. The problem these days is that people don't even have one chosen deity. Because that is a step number one. So it's important to note that this deity is not Ishwar exactly, because there's a hint of individuatedness, and Ishwar does not. Ishwar is everywhere. Because we will see that a Ishta Devata pulls Ishwar towards us. Or it is pushing us toward Ishwar. This is when the highest samadhi dawns. So Devata, let's look at it. Devata means essence of Dev, or essential attributes of Dev. And Dev means shining being, bright being. So this Devata means the essential attribute that makes a bright being bright. So where is the brightness of the sun comes from? Where is the radiance in a saint comes from? So in other words, the intrinsic brilliance of a shining being is Devata. And Ishta means that which is chosen. So the essential brilliance of the bright beings we choose to imbibe. So this sutra tells us that self-study, swadhyaya, empowers us to be in the company of Dev. In the company of that inherent unalloyed luminosity. And you know, these devatas are masters belonging to Videha or Prakriti Laya. These two terms we studied in the first chapter, in the second chapter, we'll look at it in the third and the fourth chapter also. So remember these technical terms. Because they have mastered and they are established in the Dharam Megh Samadhi. They are integral part of Ishwar's intrinsic Prakriti. So this is why these self-luminous immortal beings are called the rishis and the seers. So it's not just by their clothes or by the names or the titles, but they are one. One with God, but we choose them so that they help us. They help us. That's why when we are studying any scripture, think that you are sitting at the feet of your chosen deity. Then you'll have a vision of that too. They are immortal. We have seen that when we do jap of a particular mantra for a long time without interruption and with reverence, we eventually reach a high level of mental absorption. That happens. So with this study, Swadhyaya, this is what happens. And the technical term for this is samapatti, and that also we saw in the first chapter. So mantra jap gives us the ability to see the Shakti inherent in the mantra, and the Swadhyaya gives us that kind of a Shakti where we feel we are at the feet of that Isht Devta. This is why the same divinity is seen as very beautiful by certain people, less beautiful by others, or even terrifying. Or even some people will see the same form of God just as a human being, fully human or partially human. It's our own mind which takes us to those levels. In the beginning stages, experiences pertaining to the rishis and devatas may be fleeting because he said they visit you. So they may come and go, and you might think that your mind is playing the tricks. Or if they are occurring in your dream, you might think that no, it is just my own mind is playing tricks. Or sometimes these experiences may be so mingled with our mental tendencies, we may not see the spiritual values in those dreams or visions. Because there is a dense darkness of tamas when we are sleeping. It doesn't let us see the reality of that vision. But if we are sincerely and consistently engage ourselves in the practice of yam and niyam, remember that. We talked about the yams, and right now we are talking about the niyams, but we should not forget we have learned earlier. And most importantly, the tap. Keep on purifying yourself. Expand the quality and the capacity of your mind. And eventually you will receive the clearer message. You will have the purer vision of your Isht Devta. There won't be any doubt in your mind. You don't have to check it with the scriptures or with anybody. It will not be obstructed by the mental conditioning. Even in your waking state, you will be able to experience these visits. You will always think that there is somebody next to you, and that is your Isht Devta. And each time we gain these experiences, our capacity expands until one day we are able to comprehend the essence of the divinity. Essence. And those who have reached this level of realization are called Siddhs. So see that Rishi Patanjali is telling us that Swadhyaya can make us a Siddh also, accomplished one. Each time we come in touch with these bright beings, our consciousness is elevated to a new height. Their presence fills our consciousness. And there will be more and more purity. And this purity will destroy the veil that hides our buddhi sattva, which we talked about a few weeks ago. The essence of our inner intelligence. We no longer see Ishwar outside of us. or ourselves outside of Ishwar. We realize the guiding grace of Ishwar has always been with us, and that this divine grace grants us lasting fulfillment of ultimate freedom. Outcome of this is, in your personality, there will be humility, there will be gratitude. Because if there is arrogance with this, that means it was not what we are talking about. When we see Ishwar, when we have a visit of the Ishta Devata, we can spontaneously surrender to that Ishta Devata and Ishwar. And this really opens the floodgate of the highest samadhi. And that samadhi we're going to talk about in the next verse, next time. So that's how important the Swadhyaya is, studying of the scriptures. Because if we don't study the scriptures, how are we going to study ourselves? How will we know how to do the tap? See, just like today I mentioned tap, different level. It could be sattvic, rajasic, tamasic. It is at the body, mind, and through our vocal cords. That's all given in the scriptures. If we have never read Bhagavad Gita, we will not know this. But then ultimately we got to look at ourselves also. So Swadhyaya has 3 parts. Shravan, Manan, Nidhi, Dhyasan. Remember that. All 3 levels of Swadhyaya. And then this Swadhyaya, having a visit from our Ishta Devata, ultimately we'll see there's no difference between my Ishta Devata and the Ishwar. Ishta Devata is the one which is just a form of my choice, but actually it's a Ishwar. So we'll look at that next time. So let's stop it here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you very much.